Mario, Foreverwinter. Today I'm going to be trying to go ahead and get myself through every single tunnel system in the game, this new update. Honest opinions, I don't like this update. I feel like blocking most of the game behind the tunnel system is not good for new players, and it's also sort of unintuitive even for veteran players like myself. And the new drone system is not fun. It gives you 3 to start with, I believe, but and you can build them, but getting these parts is strange, and especially just having to need a fast travel drone, needing all these parts just to go anywhere except for the very first tunnel is strange. So I'm going to be going through each single one of these tunnels. To go to the next tunnel, it requires you to extract first in the tunnel, go into another map, then extract at one of that other map's points to get to the second tunnel. Then at the second tunnel, make your way through, get to another map, extract from that point to a third one, and the fourth one. The idea is to finish on one of these last 2 maps, and hopefully we'll be able to do it in one shot, because oh my god, does this game ever love throwing random bullshit at you in these tunnels. From bosses to one-shot enemies to the very questionable mechanics of this game's jumping and parkour, if you want to call it that. I mean, your character can't run straight, for God's sake, so it should be fine. You can bring just a small little bit of equipment because you'll be getting most of it back, and then you'll get excess amounts of medical supplies as you're playing. I have a list of items I can use in order to get parts for my... So we're going to be moving sparingly, but we will not be actually picking it up. We'll just be sorting through stuff. About this game, you start playing it for yourself, you decide to start playing it for yourself. These tunnels are strange in regard to the fact that sometimes they will just want you to go way out of your way in order to just find one loot room. I don't like that. It's strange. An example of this, you can see that this is down to 2 separate pipes. Presumably I would be able to go to a loot room down there. However, I'm going to the next extract while looting everything I can along the way, as I have a desire to put this up. The longer you stay in these tunnels, the longer you stay in these tunnels, obviously, it greatly increases the risk of dying and losing everything. Generally, the idea is that if you want to collect enough drug evidence, you can do that so that you don't have to do a one-shot like I'm currently attempting. However, considering how expensive drones are to make, I cannot see that being something that people want to do consistently without a very large team. This game is asking to do.
As long as I'm the last one standing.
I have no desire to do such a thing. I want to finish this game, or rather, I want to finish the missions. Not missions, really. I want to get through the pipes as fast as I can, because sticking around is only going to cost.
Enemy density indicates they're tracking us. We should head home.
Oh, so it is. Yeah, Mother Courages are decently common, not too hard to avoid. I have seen players report it. Now, the question of whether or not there will end up some kind of grabber, if the grabber is
Density
pipes.
indicates they're tracking
No,
us.
from what I can tell.
We should head home.
But that's only for now. There is always a chance. It's either they're incredibly rare, or they simply do not exist in pipes. That is what I hope we can all agree would be the preference. Sorry. Yes, indeed. A grabber in the pipes would be terrible because grabbers have very poor enemy design. The thing with grabbers is that I understand the point of having a incredibly powerful enemy that strikes fear into the hearts of all who are used to it. The issue with the grabber is that in the game that it intends to reward you for playing smart, the grabber, rather avoiding the grabber, doesn't really reward you. There's no way to play smart to reward you for taking any specific approach to avoid it. Where every other enemy in this game, there's something you can do not to kill it, to avoid it. Grabber, there is nothing you can do other than equip a pneumatic jump and pray best. Especially because the grabber can be in HK. This is stupid. You should not have an HP, but there's nothing you can do against them. It's entirely up to luck. Now I understand why luck is a factor in this game. There's two ways you get out in this game: luck and skill. You know, I mean, Masked Man's voice line is literally, "The luck and the controls, you might make it out." I understand this. However, there should not be any enemy in this game that's reliant entirely on luck. For you, there is something to do with positioning that could give you some sort of edge against the grabber. Like, for example, if you had a grabber HK spawn on you on this map, which has happened to me before when everybody who plays this game. Let's say you were up on this ladder right here, and it started running up the stairs. I don't remember the stairs. It started running up the stairs. If you were to, say, jump off a side while shooting at it, hopefully that will distract it, make it run away, give you enough time to book it all the way over here for extract. Because it can, it won't always will, but it can run away if you shoot at it. And then it will come back for you in, say, 15-20 seconds. However, this, of course, is very unreliable.
Just one more.
Sometimes the grabber will ignore you, and considering the way it has a large hitbox, that if you happen to collide with it, sometimes this just does nothing at all for you whatsoever. I am not a fan of the grabber whatsoever. I believe it is a very poorly designed enemy. Visually, it looks cool, and like I said, I completely understand the point of having an enemy which the entire point of this enemy is simply to be terrifying. However, I think it certainly needs to be fixed. It shouldn't be able to see you through walls like it can currently do, which is strange. And there should be some sort of something you can do to not kill it. I mean, you can kill it, it's difficult, but there should be some sort of something you can do against it, simply to delay it at the very least, because it's just such a stupid enemy to deal with, and even the most veteran of players will die to this enemy with ease. So there's my little rant about the Euruskin grabber. I am a firm believer that it is something that needs desperate changing, and it cannot be excused by the state of the game. It cannot be excused by, like, the fact that, you know, this game's early access. It's gonna have glitches, it's gonna have problems. I am accepting of that. I understand that. It's Unreal Engine 5 too. It's gonna have its problems. So whenever I die to some sort of glitch, or I suck it up, I deal with it. However, The grabber isn't a glitch. It is a very intentionally designed enemy. Everything that it does so with the intention that this enemy is going to make it into the full release of the game. That there will be no changes to it now that it's existing as it has. And I cannot agree with that. I cannot die to this enemy and be accepting of it,
This is it.
because I
We
find it
decide what happens.
You know, I actually intended to bring an AA-12 just because I really thought we would probably need to sweat. And who knows, maybe that will be proved correct. There's also UI changes. I cannot properly tell you whether or not the fan is. Certainly, I think they have a really bad flame drops right there. I get what they're going for with the UI, because this is a very visually appealing game. They want people to be able to enjoy it more. I understand what the point is, but I can't help but feel like with the UI being as important as it is, I can't help but feel like there should be some sort of minimizing strategy. Maybe you tuck everything away into a corner. That could be nice. But as it is okay. Maybe it's okay. It's having it fade out. It can be inconvenient. I feel as if you were in the middle of a fight, or you are recovering from a fight, if you were not mostly full health, I believe it should stay up, but it does not. That's not nice. But if I was really such a problem, I could just disable it. I don't think it's that much of a problem, and I do dig the way this game looks with it. So it's all up to preference. What you like, what you don't like. If you are a new player and a little bit confused with what I'm doing, maybe you're just interested in listening to what I've had to say, which I seriously doubt anyone's even going to watch this video. I'm going to be a shitty little channel. But every now and then I get some videos that pop up. You know how it is. If you are confused with the way this tunnel system works, essentially, it is a new way that this game intends to play, where new players and old players alike are going to have to go through sets of tunnels, not only in order to get materials to upgrade certain parts of your base, which is more of an in-game goal, because with it being an early access, there's not a whole lot to be done yet. There's repetitive quests, but you do them and they just come back, and that's really it. Apart from Lordos and Funko, there are not really any long-term goals, even those are going to last you forever. So the intention of the tunnels, I believe, is to extend this game's longevity. The idea being that with these new horrifically overpriced changes to... not changes, well, there are horrifically overpriced changes to the cost of new maps, not new maps, the old maps, but they've changed the prices so that game, like a map like not Scorched Enclave, Los Angeles, for example, now costs 13 water to go to, which I find to be ridiculous, but that's not what I intended. With the changes, now that they've updated it to where you can get these changes to like personal quarters in a shooting range, they are cool changes. However, I believe their in-game goals, as not only are they extremely expensive, both in terms of credits, but also because they're expensive, terms of these materials, these new materials you can get. You couldn't have gotten them before. They're accessed purely by way of these tunnels. This I'm not a fan of, and I am a fan of at the same time. I like the idea of new content. However, I cannot wholeheartedly say that they are done well. Man, what's here? The thing with this new end game that they're throwing at us, perpetually updating, or this perpetual upgrade to your game,
Eyes on us.
this very long-term goal of gathering these very scarce materials and crafting
That's our luck
bit by
running
bit,
out.
crafting this little home base of yours up from what you already have. It's a cool idea. I don't feel like it's executed all that well. Not that the tunnels are visually unimpressive, nor am I having too much of a problem with performance on them, even though performance is a very far-reaching problem that needs to be addressed with this game. But it's more so simply just how expensive there are, because I cannot really say that these tunnels are fun. Visually, they are cool, but actually playing them, it is a whole lot of doing nothing. It is a whole lot of running around, and now that you have this new stamina system, well, it's not really new anymore, but relatively recent stamina change, your character will not be running around as fast. You'll have to be pausing constantly. And because of this, and all the riskiness associated with these cramped tunnels, they're just not fun. It's loot for, like, if you want to be thorough, it's loot for like 20-15 minutes-ish, then die to an orgamech that pops up out of some corner somewhere, or you fall somewhere because you can't strafe, you can't do anything, and these jumps are very, very close. So, one might wonder, should I get this game if I don't already have it, or should I go through with these tunnels? And, like, should I play this game that is so focused on these tunnels with the new very cool, very cool. If you want to, this is a game for if you hate yourself. I have such a love-hate relationship with this game because I love what it stands for. I love the aesthetics. I love what the developers intend to do. And sometimes I have these really fun. Oh, hey, mommy. Sometimes I have these really, really fun extracts, really cool moments. Sometimes I'll get together with my gang. I've met some really cool people in this game. That's something you can usually bet on, is people who play this game consistently are incredible people that I'm blessed to know. But it is not a game for casual players. And I consider myself to be a fairly casual player, which is strange. Why is it that I, being a player like that, am attracted to this game? I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it's just a mixture of all the other things. Maybe it's because I cannot pick any specific genre and stick to it. I have to try all these different things that I enjoy quite a bit. But whatever the case, I'm here. And sometimes I hate this game, and sometimes I love it. I'm not a fan of this update. I appreciate the tunnels visually, but I feel like they shouldn't be a required aspect of traversal between different maps. I feel like now with this update, you have to put in all of this new time and energy into these things, and if you don't, you can't you can't experience most of the content this game has to offer. Which is really disappointing because although you aren't really going to be getting more of the rewards on other maps, like I feel like the amount you get is pretty standard on every single map. They're visually incredible maps with a bit of variety. I imagine they're going to add a lot more variety. But for now, it is just the visual variety, and they are really cool. However, being cool is not enough. It's not enough. And with the implementation now of this change, where it is difficult to for especially players, it is incredibly difficult to get into this game. But more so, it is difficult to understand it. There's no introduction. The tutorial is bad. It doesn't understand. It doesn't explain so many different aspects of this game, and there's little to no explanation on enemy varieties. Especially so, I wasn't even aware of how the one map like Fog War, how this like whole ever-changing control thing works. Because not only is it incredibly unintuitive, but it's also sort of irrelevant. I never found myself going out of my way to look for the radars that you can hack, simply because there was no point. There's no point in learning who controls what area if you don't care. You're just gonna go play that map anyways, because your decision on taking a map is gonna be based on what quests you might have there.
Everyone for themselves.
What things that are more common there than other maps. Like for example, my played map is probably Ashen Mesa, because I found it is the most consistent source of medium mech codexes. A lot of mechs spawn consistently on that map. I'd say 1 out of every 10 runs is going to be a night shift map, in which case I can just thankfully book it to extract. I'm not a fan of the jump just in case of daytime maps. But sorry, I'm getting off track. You'll always. I found that Ashen Mesa is about 1 in 10 is night shift, and then maybe 3 out of 10 there won't be any mechs. But every other time there's usually a mech, and I like that.
Enemy contact. Beware.
I like that because I'm very much a mech person. I'm a mech supporter, so I tend to stick to Ashen Mesa. It's a visually appealing map. I really like watching the AI battles whenever they do happen, as the game just feels like it's trying to be void, letting me watch them. Or when they don't just all change their direction, all change their attention just to focus on the little scavenger. That's not fun. But I like Ashen Mesa a lot. And I'm not going to change whether or not I would go to Ashen Mesa based on who's currently occupying it. Because if it's the Euriskans, then I'm going to get more Euriskan mechs, and if it's the Europans, I'm going to get more Europan mechs. And that's not going to matter, because it doesn't matter what mech it is. They're mechs, they all drop the same codexes. And in the same regard, even if you really hate cyborgs, and you do some sort of map-changing event, or you hack some certain things, and you see that this place is controlled by cyborgs, and you really don't like the cyborgs, well, it's not going to make a difference. All you would do is theoretically slap on a pneumatic jump, maybe bring some extra ammo, and then go and appease Aramaki afterwards because you killed all of his friends. Because whether or not you like an enemy, it doesn't matter. And it's not going to matter who's controlling it. None of this shit matters. And all of this content that they've put time into really doesn't affect players. Never once have I, with my crew of veteran players, well, there's one of them who's not veteran, but he's fine. Never once did we ever think, wow, like, guys, it feels like this place has an increase in cyborg spawns or XYZ spawns. We should get out of here, gang, and go play some other map. Or maybe we should go do some map changes so that we don't have to do XYZ. No one thinks like that, because you have to put so much time and effort. Oh, fuck, I hate this part. Because you would have to put so much time and effort into this into doing that, and no one wants to put that much time and effort. No one wants to. Because, yes, this game is not for the faint of heart. However, it is also just flat out a game that people want to enjoy, and if you did do something like that, there would be nothing at all for you to enjoy. There is no enjoyment in what the game has to currently offer with the map, the war map, with the idea of changing these things. There's nothing about it that appeals to players whatsoever, except for like a very few not really noticeable exceptions. Like, for example, me being a Codex Goblin, at some point I would like to get all the codexes there are in this game, including getting getting some friends together with railguns, so that we can go after unkillable enemies, quote unquote unkillable, and getting their unique codexes. In which case, something like destroying the bridge on Ashen Mesa would be a cool idea. And then getting your map changing event, where I think it makes it to where the cyborgs are less likely to spawn, and it also will spawn in the Euruskan shield officer, who is a fun little guy to avoid because he's always coming at you and he's just a little goofy goober. And then maybe I'm gonna want to try and kill him. So that is an example of one of the map chaining events that you can do. And I can see that being fun. But that's not a regular occurrence. And it really, really should be what Fundog are putting their effort into working on it. They should not be focusing on this map war thing and all of this, because players really just don't give a shit. And no one really cares at all. And it's kind of sad that they implemented an update where everyone who looks at it just kind of turns away in disgust. Well, not everybody. I feel as if there are some players who participate in a lot of the more map stuff, but it's far from consistent. Oh shit. It's certainly far from consistent. I never found myself wanting to do any of those within filmmaking like this game. And then certainly the sight of seeing both of which is kind of cool. But that's all it will ever be, is kind of cool. It's not the adrenaline rush you get when you're running to an extract and you barely manage to get out with your life while you've loaded with 2-3 codexes. It's not that. It's not the incredible feeling of just barely getting out with those little things that you so desperately needed. It's not that. What does it say? I don't know what I'm looking for. Instructions. Didn't I pick those up?
Hey, I live for this. Please, give me time.
Guess I'll go look through this shit. So, it's not any of those things. And for that reason, it's never going to be something that a lot of players look at consistently. It will always be something that players will occasionally dabble in, myself included, my crew included, but it's not something that players will ever do very consistently. Purely for the reason that it is a time commitment for basically no rewards. Like, for example, you're not going to use the map of war as a consistent way of getting codexes being the most valuable items in the game. You don't do that. if you want codexes, what you do is you will take a map like Scorched Enclave, Ashen Mesa, and you play it a lot. And you'll have mech fights and stuff. You'll have mechs you'll take out yourself with grenade launchers. But you don't have to bring a why am I forgetting what you don't have to bring a railgun and do these map changing events. Okay, well, you don't have to bring a railgun and do these map changing events in order to get your codex. You never have to. They're simply easier ways to do it, and I hope they stay that way, because if codexes become something difficult to obtain, that will be disappointing. Well, not necessarily difficult, because they are difficult to obtain. You put yourself at a lot of risk. You have guaranteed hunter killers that will come after you. They're not easy to get your hands on. But what they are is not altogether the most inconvenient thing in the world, if that makes sense. If you really want, okay, well, I have everything here and it's still telling me. If you want codex, you're not going to have to put in an immense amount of effort in order to get that codex. Now, some days, admittedly, you will have bad days with really bad luck where it feels impossible to get just one codex. And certainly when I'm going to be attempting my run of getting all of the codexes, I'm going to be repeatedly banging my head against my keyboard in the face of attempting to get a grabber codex. Not only for how inconsistent it will be to get it to spawn, but also because of how difficult it will be to actually get it with the railgun. That is going to be very interesting. But yeah, hopefully you understand what it is I'm trying to get at this point. Now then. Yeah, so the last map we played on, Stairway Gate. So hopefully we shouldn't have too many left until we get all of the pipelines unlocked. And I'm going to be titling this video something like a complete playthrough of Foreverwinter or something. But that's not really what this is. This game is like a campaign. Less so than a playthrough. I'm calling it a playthrough because I think that's what the technical definition of this could be called. Going through every single one of the pipes, visiting a good chunk of the maps. But it's not really a playthrough, if that makes sense. Now, will this game ever have a campaign? I doubt it. I feel like their attempts at a campaign are going to be the quest system with Bunko, upgrades, scavengers, the way that Bunko and Nordos, and you have these boards. But that's all they're ever going to be. That you work towards. You're never gonna have they might voice stuff, but never is it going to be a system where it's like something you find in Call of Duty or something. You're never gonna have that kind of campaign, that kind of campaign where it feels like something so inherently different to the core. That's not what the Foreverwinter is. And if they end up deciding to change that and prove me wrong, good for them. I'm not sure what a campaign for this game would look like at this moment. I wouldn't write off the idea. It sounds like it could be cool. But I feel like Foreverwinter is inherently a game based around carving out your own path, playing in your own specific way, with your own morals, in a way that lets you garner things that you like and avoid things you don't like. If you want to go into this game with an all-out war mentality, you bring
As long as I'm the last one standing.
equipment, health, pick up like Bagman or something, and just go at it. You can play like that. Be super stealthy. You skirt around the map. You can play like that. If you want to be a fast scav girl who fights a ton of enemies and doesn't give a shit about anybody, you can play like that. So, I feel like slapping a campaign on this game isn't gonna work. Specifically for the way that this game is so focused on you playing in your own specific way and forcing you to play a specific way wouldn't work. Or having a campaign would be sort of like the way like Payday 2 has a campaign, where it's very loose, and it's just a set of quests, sort of like what we have. That just tell you go to these maps, complete them however you want, or just get these specific items while you're doing it, and then you'll unlock story stuff that progresses through the game. And so that's sort of what we already have, and what I assume they're going to continue with, which is why I don't think this game will ever have a campaign in the traditional Call of Duty-esque way. I think it's going to continue with this very uncontrolling quest-based style of storytelling. Now, the question of whether it will truly evolve into something interesting, I couldn't tell you if the quests will ever be anything mundane, because currently, as of now, many of the quests are broken, glitchy, inconsistent, and the story stuff you get a lot of the time doesn't feel fruitful. You get little quick bits, little tidbits where your choice of faction representative will talk to you briefly. Maybe he'll congratulate you, or maybe he'll just be indifferent to you, whatever. But those aren't really campaign. They aren't really retention holding. You just sort of look at them and skip them. Lordos, I believe, is sort of an attempt at this campaign system. Or maybe it's perhaps intended to be a long-term campaign thing. Maybe they'll end up changing in the future. But as of now, the stories are just walls of text. And they aren't really all that interesting.
And we can break out.
They aren't that interesting. They started off interesting, but just with the time in between, the cigarettes, with how brief his little story quips are, it doesn't retain your information. Oh, there we go, downtown Los Angeles. This should be the last one. With all of this, there is nothing that interesting about Lordos' story. I know the end goal that I've heard about from my friend is that eventually we will be able to have him as a, not necessarily ally, but a dude who, like, he'll walk around patrolling the innards of your base. That sounds cool. But is it a story? Is it a campaign? Can I call it a campaign? All of this just so a dude can walk around? No, it's not. And I don't think the developers are ever going to intend it to be. And I think Lordos will always be a piece of stuff. Neither is Bunko, considering how you have to, first of all, be in a party of 4 players, second of all, spend a bunch of money with them, third of all, have all, I don't know, maybe now with the change where there's 4 maximum quests, but these 3, just to say that. There's those 2 before, and then you have to have all 3 quests as scavenger quests, and then you'll unlock Bunko. A campaign would never be something so superficial, so strange and unintuitive. Never are they going to make Bunko, I imagine. Especially considering how he just doesn't really talk to you, he just says, oh cool, now go do this. Sorry. Never is he going to be a campaign. So, what does this lead to? are they going to add a third character, a third quest that's more than just the basic factions? Some third quest that will give you some sort of story that will bring you through the tunnels and to other locations. What is their intention? I do not know. As of October 2nd, 2025, we'll never know. And, well, I see. We'll know eventually. So yeah. That is a playthrough of Foreverwinter. If you thought that going through all of these tunnels, picking up the pieces of loot that we did garner, if you thought that was boring, it was. And I hope they make them more interesting. But not more interesting in the way that they need more enemies. They don't. They really fucking don't. Like, at all need more enemies. I think that's a fucking terrible idea. I'm thinking I'm going to want to try to consistently do these runs, these complete playthrough runs, because they are good drone components. I had no drone components, now I have plenty. Not enough to upgrade everything, obviously, but to start, I do wonder how I'm supposed to get rid of these. But that is a story for another day. They did slightly tone down the price, I believe, now that I'm here. But there's no reason this should cost as much water as it does. Especially because there's no actual benefit. Oh man, these cost fast travels around so too. There's no benefit to going to these ones at all. They don't give you extra stuff at all. Like I said, I found like these two are the best for Godexes, and they're the default ones. So, fun dog. I hope that they make these changes better for the game instead of how they're currently worsened the quality of life. And they've turned an endgame grind into an endgame tedium. But yeah, that's a complete playthrough of Foreverwinter using the new Fun Dog skin. Enjoy.